Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Rob Johnson, president of Rob Johnson Communications. We thank you for being with us.
And I'm Eileen Rochford. I'm the CEO of the marketing and strategy firm, The Harbinger Group. It is a stunningly beautiful autumn day in Chicago on the day that we're recording. And I'm so excited for our topic of today's episode. We're diving into something essential for businesses of any size and, frankly, any industry. It's this concept of a relevance reset. Don't you just love that? It kind of rolls right off the tongue. Relevance reset.
Who thought of that? I think two really smart people thought of it.
Yeah, it was all you. Yeah.
No, it was us.
As the leaves turn, and they're not falling yet, but they're going to soon, it's always the perfect time for every organization to revisit core values and reevaluate messaging. I think they go hand in hand.
It really is a perfect time. So we're talking about the new year, but we're talking about a new school year, back to office, etc. So that means it's business back to basics time. So let's start with the big question. What are core values and why are they so important? Core values are the fundamental beliefs that guide a company's behavior and decision making. They are the essence of what an organization's identity is, shaping its culture, influencing how it interacts with clients, employees, the marketplace. And as we approach the end of the fiscal year, it is an ideal time, the calendar year, I should say. It's an ideal time for companies to reassess and reaffirm their core values. Are they still aligned with the company's mission and vision? Have they evolved to meet changing market conditions? And this is all so important because if people can't talk uniformly about what they do and how they do it and what they stand for, they're not going to be able to go to the marketplace with any sort of clarity.
Yeah. And I always view an organization's core values as kind of the epicenter, the beating heart of an organization. They are the elements that you turn to and leverage to reinforce any initiative, any new strategy, right? Because if something that you're doing in your company can't be tied back to one of your core values or several of them, then you are going to have to question, are we even doing the right thing? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And I couldn't agree more because it's so important to have, to be able to, you have to have that reset as we're talking about, the relevance reset, but leaning on those core values and clearly understanding them. And the reason we're talking about it right now is because, there's been a lot of time. People have been on vacation. People have been away from the office. They've had their focus elsewhere. And now, because of the time of year that we just expressed, it is a terrific time to just be like, let's remind everybody of who we are, what we stand for, and how we do business.
Yeah. And I see it as, again, it's like this coalescing tool or technique. When I think about a relevance reset, I think that most of the time, the core values you've selected for your organization, they'll remain. They're right. They're really, again, at the heart of your mission and values. And it's not common that an organization drops a core value. Maybe it's more common, to add one here and there, but it's really common for an organization to have strayed away from talking about them. It happens all the time. And that's a mistake. And I see an incredible opportunity, and we've started to do it ourselves here at my company, on my team, an incredible opportunity to use your core values to help reinforce everything you're seeking to accomplish as a company and as a team. It's a wonderful tool to bring them in. And is this a good time for me to use an example?
Yeah, I was going
to be your follow-up.
On the tip of my tongue. I was like, give us an example of what you're talking about specifically at the Harbinger Group.
Yeah. So we have some pretty cool, I'm not going to state all of them and explain all of them, but collaboration and consistency are two of our 6 core values. Collaboration and consistency. And I love that collaboration is a core value of ours because every time we're starting something new, a new initiative, and you know how new is hard, especially for, well-formed teams. We can get into ways of operating. And when you throw something new in, it's like, oh God, there's something I have to learn and it's going to be difficult and I have to get out of my comfort zone. Well, I always start by kind of leading us back to thinking about what is our core value of collaboration and why did we choose it before I start explaining something new that we're going to introduce. And collaboration at its essence means that everyone contributes, everyone's ideas are surfaced, they're not all used, but everybody within the process of creating something plays an important role. So to be able to do that effectively, you have to communicate. You have to talk it up out there, as I like to say, back from my softball playing days. By talking it up out there, you are naturally collaborating. You're sharing your work product, you're gaining feedback, you're working it through, the various steps in our ideation and creation, content creation process. And that means that it's a better product because everyone's had input on it. But when we're starting something new, by referencing collaboration as a core value that drives us in everything we do here at our company, everyone remembers, right? I like to collaborate. We get a better work product when we do so. So even though I'm sure what Eileen's about to tell us, even though it's going to sound hard and mean maybe I got to get out of my, typical day-to-day way of doing things, she's reminding me and us that collaboration is always a good thing. And we're always happier when we do it. Is that clear?
That makes perfect sense. And really what you're talking about also is, sometimes people overlook the steps that you have to take when it comes to communicating. And this whole idea of collaboration at the Harbinger Group is really talking about being mindful of the fact that you need to constantly communicate what you're doing, what your expectations are, what other people are doing, what their expectations are. I mean, that's really what you're talking about here. And that's truly collaboration, but it does require mindfulness. It does require, I need to take that step and to communicate this particular piece of whatever project you may be working on. And that's collaboration.
Yep. You nailed it for sure.
Yeah. So again, it's not an internal exercise, right? It's about external too, right?
It
Eileen?
definitely is. Absolutely. Yeah. It's how we communicate our values externally, as we know, is equally, if not more important, in my, opinion. I'm sure you share that as a professional, marketer. And I think that leads us to a great question that we can work through. How do you use your core values to communicate what you do for, if you're a services company, your client, if you're a products company, your customer? Yeah. Customers, all those good things. And that's a crucial question. And we feel that core values should be reflected in every aspect of talking about your business, from any marketing materials, everything on your website, to even, your chatbot interactions and your human interactions with your customers. They have to convey what sets you apart and how you can serve your clients or your customers better than anybody else.
And what you're talking about here is differentiating yourself. So I love this when I do training with various firms and they talk about themselves. It's, how do you talk about yourself? How do you, what are those core values? Can you properly articulate them? And then, there may be, let's say you're vying for business and you're one of several firms that's, giving an RFP or making a presentation or whatever. But what is it beyond, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, which maybe some of the other firms say they're going to do too, right? What are you saying about why your firm is unique and how it is going to best serve the client? And that is the extra step that we're talking about here, which is we can do the work. And I know that you're comfortable and I know that I'm comfortable with, Rob Johnson Communications. I know I can do the work, but what am I bringing to the table that differentiates myself? And how does that align with what the client, the customer, as you were saying, what they expect and what they want?
and what they need.
And what they need.
Mm-hmm. I know I said I wasn't going to go through our core values, but I think I'll mention a couple more because it works here. So, decency is one of ours. I find that is something that people always say, what? When I mention, so we have decency, we have dedication, we have consistency, collaboration, we have effectiveness. Efficiency. I just made a mistake.
You just know, or if you just add effectiveness, it can be another core value.
Man, no, it's efficiency, and the other one is enjoyment. Yeah, CEO just totally screwed that up.
It's okay. She knows her stuff. Yeah. She knows her stuff, folks. We.
It's the end of the day, and I'm sick. Anyway,
so when you sit here and you talk about these other core values, and to you, is it obviously it's a differentiator, but when you're in that meeting or when you're trying to make a case for the Harbinger Group, are you able to be like, and we care about X, Y, and Z, and they're more than just words. They can't just be words like, oh, 6 core values. Like, that's great. But what do they mean? And more importantly, not only what do they mean to you, your firm, and everybody who works there, what is it going to mean to the client when they go on this journey with you if they choose you as the person they want to lead their marketing and strategy?
Yeah. So when you think about a couple of these, for example, efficiency and consistency, those are things that people might say, well, I expect that. And plenty of your other competitors are probably going to be efficient and deliver a high quality work product consistency through processes. Now, that's very true. And I don't debate that. But I think it's important for our team that we have those in our 6, because I want them to always understand that that is the expectation. Efficiency in particular can be unique by demonstrating to clients that we don't waste time or pad, scope of works with fluff. We get right to it, because we like to do the work and just to make it happen,
Right.
Maybe it's because we have short attention spans. I don't know, but we're really, really good at it, and we want to get to the meat of it, and we want those results to show, hey, we just, knocked that out of the park. So that's where, efficiency comes into play. But the others, I believe personally that decency and enjoyment are 2 very different things. So again, decency people might say, well, of course you better be decent or else I'm not going to work with you. Like, meaning like, a good person at your heart, and you have your clients and customers' best interests, front and center in everything that you do. Right. But we remind ourselves of that every day, and we make decisions about how we conduct ourselves in our interactions with each other and with our clients. Not everybody does. You might think, decency is baked in, especially these days, less and less. So
it really is. And if I can take that concept that you're just introducing here about decency a step farther, and I want to share a little anecdote about you and me when I first started on my new journey in this field over 4.5 years ago now. I can't believe it's been that long, but you were kind enough to partner with me and allow me to do some work. Really from about day 3, and you said, I have a no a-holes rule. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. And to this day, I don't want to work with a-holes. And I think the decency goes beyond that. It's a two-way street with you, the client, you, whatever. But I feel like that's part of what you're articulating here, which is I want good people to do good work and be decent people, and I don't want to work with a-holes, and I don't want anybody who is one to be working at my firm. Is that, did I put words in your mouth, or is that fair?
Yeah, no, very fair. And you're right. I love how that connects directly, to decency. And here's how you can, listeners, lean on a core value. And, so the example of decency, the example of not working with a-holes, as Rob put it, people who, you really just, they don't reflect your values, and they don't bring enjoyment. So again, I just connected it to another one of our team's core values. So imagine you're rolling out a new business initiative to your team. And if you're in a services company, and you're framing for them how we're going to do this, how we're going to go after specific industry sectors, specific titles, specific types of work and issues, problems that they face that we're really good at solving for. Well, that's not enough. You can also remind them that when we're vetting these clients, when they're coming to us, there is an aspect of decency / no a-holes that we also have to be screening for at the beginning, because we don't want to get into a situation where it's clear that our values don't align, because that's not what that doesn't make for a good partnership when values don't align. So that's an example when we're talking about this relevance reset, how you can use your core values to frame any kind of new initiative, particularly now as we're kind of winding down on 2023 and preparing for 2024. It's a great time to dust those off and use them in introducing anything that you might need to do to keep your company moving forward.
And it reminds you of like who you are as a firm and who you are as people, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to acknowledge something you were talking about as one of the core values, consistency. And I just want to say consistency is key here, because the clients need to feel your core values in every touch point with your brand. It's about building trust, showing them that your values aren't just words on a website, but they're genuinely ingrained in your company's DNA. And speaking of consistency, let's talk about internal message discipline. I'm really big on this. How can businesses tap into the power of consistent messaging? Internal message discipline is about ensuring that everyone in the organization is on the same page when it comes to communicating the company's core values and mission. This means not only sharing these values, but educating and empowering employees to embody them in their roles. And also, it also relates to collaboration too, because we were talking about that as well. But as you can see, they're all woven together. All these different concepts are woven together. And the reason I believe about internal messaging so much is because I've had clients who say, hey, we want to go do a video. We want to go tell the world how great we are. We do X, Y, and Z. And I'll say, are you all communicating internally? Do you all understand what those core values are and how you articulate them internally with one another before you go to the marketplace? And I'm really big on that, because people think, okay, we're ready to go to market. And I'm like, I don't think so. But once you're on the same page internally, then we are ready to go to the market. And what is that going to look like?
Mm-hmm. And as I alluded to before, it's very easy to stray away from referencing your core values. Sometimes, you work for the same company for quite a while, and maybe the core values have just become kind of rote, or just like, as with anything, if you hear about something quite a lot, it kind of loses its luster to you. So if you've strayed away from talking about them as an organization, again, no matter what your size, we're a real small company. And I realize how easy it is to stray from embracing them, our core values, and leveraging them in one-on-one interactions or team meetings, anything, right? It's really easy to do that. So just examine as kind of objectively as you can right now, if you're listening, and think, do we talk about them, these core values that represent us and that make us unique, enough inside? So if you don't, some things that you can do. Think about this. Every team meeting that's of any, large size, not one-on-one or 2 or 3 people necessarily, but every time you're convening as an entity with like a, larger goal that comes out of, that interaction or meeting, start your meeting by referencing, framing, here are the core values that drive us as an entity. And here's how I, say you're the facilitator of that, team meeting that day, see us using these core values to help propel us forward today in what we're working to achieve together. And then ask people, we did this recently, just last week. We get together once a month physically as a team because, we're a remote organization. And one team member suggested, hey, let's ask everyone to kind of vote, and we'll pick one of our 6 core values, and then ask everybody to come and talk about how that core value is meaningful to them as, an individual, but then also as a member of the team, and how they see that core value being or playing, an important role in today's meeting, considering what we're working to achieve together.
How did that exercise work?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was so good that it took up about 40 minutes of the agenda, which was very unexpected. So, and it led to some really interesting conversations that were actually, so collaboration was the core value that was selected. And it led to some interesting conversations that actually revealed some gaps in our processes where we weren't allowing for adequate collaboration. That's how useful it was. Yeah. So that's just one suggestion. And, everyone who's listening to the show is very smart people. You can all come up with other ways to apply this. But if, you're looking for just kind of an immediate application to put it into action, that's a pretty easy one.
That's a really good idea.
Thanks.
Really good idea.
It's working. Now I hear people talking about it in just regular account team meetings saying, oh, well, that's our, hey, that's our core value of enjoyment. Let's have some fun.
and our next point I know we want to make, it could be anybody. It's not just for the people who are maybe in the C-suite or who are in charge of marketing, right? Mm-hmm. It can be anyone, right, Eileen?
Every employee should be a brand ambassador. And you can't be a brand ambassador unless you're really living and breathing and talking about those core values. So it's the consistent messaging that helps you create a very unified front. And it's incredibly powerful, as you've said, Rob, when you get out there in the marketplace, because you've got it all in order. You're saying the same things, your actions match your words. The full package is there. But when you've got lots and lots of people inside your organization who are equipped to do that effectively, it's like you have an army of advocates, and it's apparent, everybody's working toward the same goals. But let's tackle another question of how to make yourself relevant in the marketplace. How about that one? Relevance.
Everybody's always trying to figure that one out.
Relevance is like, oh God, I can't tell you how many times a day I hear that word and have, for the last year or two. It's probably in the buzzword bingo top 5 list now. But let's be real, because it's important. You need to stay relevant. And to do so, you have to remain connected to your core values and continuously adapt to the changing market dynamics at the same time. And that's a delicate dance. But relevance is also about innovation and being in tune with your customers' needs and showing you can solve their problems. So like we talked about before, really that better than anybody else element, right? So drawing upon your core values is, it's not just about repeating them as is. It's finding the new ways to almost tilt your explanations and connections of your core values to the new things that are happening in the marketplace. So that's important too. It's, you may have some very simplified definitions of what your 4, 5, 6 core values are, and you all understand them internally, but remaining, really facile in your ability to connect them to the new things that are happening, that's another challenge in and of itself. But it's a really important one.
But what you're bringing up here is really interesting, because what you're talking about is staying connected to your core values, leaning on something that you have driven home again and again and again that's very familiar to you and the people that work with you. At the same time, getting outside of your comfort zone, which is the adaptation to the changing market dynamics that you were referring to. So think about, okay, I'm leaning on something very familiar in order to leave the comfort zone, that box that I've been in, thinking outside the box and adapting to the way my industry or the market is changing. So I think that's really important to note. And I think it's fascinating. And so we're not saying, all right, just leave your comfort zone. We're saying, do what's familiar to you, that's ingrained in you, to leave that, to lead your company through changing conditions.
Yeah. Like, here's an example, and I'm sure you have one too, but I'm just going to jump right in. So efficiency being one of my company's 6 core values, we used to talk about that almost solely in terms of processes and how it's the processes that enable us to do things better, not having to spend time thinking about each time, like starting from scratch. You had the roadmap in front of you, and the ability to implement those processes meant that you could get to the great work product faster, more efficiently, more effectively, et cetera, yada, yada. Well, today, we certainly believe in the power of processes, and they are still, core and underpinning everything that we do. But today, the way that we're now talking about them more and more and more is in terms of the use of artificial intelligence in our industry and the smart ways to do so. And you and I have talked about, just artificial intelligence in marketing quite a bit on a couple of episodes. So, you can understand why that's so relevant right now. So my tilt on efficiency and consistency to a large degree, 2 of our core values, really now is talking about it from that space of how artificial intelligence can be applied in the services we deliver to get an even better work product for clients. That's just one example. Or tilt.
It's a huge adaptation in the marketplace, right? And it's happening right before our eyes. And I remember back in the spring, we were talking to a couple of the genius marketers that work for you, and they were all trying on different AI tools. And the point you're making is it does help you. It does help make you more efficient. It helps me become more efficient. And we had already put a box around it, a fence up around it, which was it's not your solution. It can be part of your solution. If it's used correctly, it can make you more efficient, but it's not doing all the work for you. And when people think, oh, I'm not a good writer, I'm just going to plug it in and whatever comes out. No. You still have to keep an eye on it. But when it works, it does make you more efficient, and you can, change that content to be, very specifically tailored to a client or to whatever your values are. And so it can help you make you more efficient. And you are leaning in on this big change, which is AI's here. It's here to stay. And that's why we've been talking about it so much.
So it's just one example of how, remaining relevant means, adapting to kind of changing forces, changing aspects of your industry. And that's how we now talk about efficiency. It's from the frame of AI versus only process-driven product delivery, which is how we used to talk about it. So
agreed.
One good example.
That's a good example, and it's current events and it's real. And as we wrap things up here today, I want to introduce one more concept here, and that is staying true to your why. Your why is what connects you and your clients on a deeper level. It's the emotional bridge that can turn a transactional relationship into a meaningful partnership. And I'll give you one quick example. And it was from a meeting I had earlier this afternoon, a Zoom meeting. And it was talking to somebody about who's a veteran in his industry. But as I was talking about how the people that work under him view what they do, I was like, you can't just say I'm selling my service. I'm going to go sell because I've got to make a quota and various other things. Because if you're not in the relationship business, if you think you're just selling a widget or whatever it is, then you're not going to get past, the first hurdle. Yeah. But if you understand that you're in the relationship business and you're building it long term and you're on that journey with your client or customer, then you're going to be successful at what you do. That's your why. That's like it's like planting the flag for your core value, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Yep. That's another great thing to revisit in this journey of, resetting your relevance. Go back and look at that. I'm sure you've written it down. Everybody has. And if you haven't, there's still time. No better time than the present, as they say, right? Yeah. Define your why. And it might just change things and certainly bring you a new perspective and help you bring things into greater relevance, at your company or is with you as a leader of your team.
And at the very least, it made you think a little more deeply about what you're doing. So that at the very least, it's already a win for you.
Totally. Okay. Well, gosh, we covered some good ground here. That was
We did.
So I think that's going to do it for another episode. Gosh, is this our 51st? I don't even want us.
50
I
seconds.
can't.
It's hard to keep
Stop
track,
it.
right?
Oh my God. There's so many now. That just means we're doing a good thing. We're going to keep it rolling. So that's it for our 50. You said second. I'm going with it. Episode of Can You Hear Me? And I'm Eileen Rochford.
And I'm Rob Johnson. We do thank you for listening. And remember, you can find Can You Hear Me wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more.